Hello and welcome to another edition of Homebound Science. Today we're going to use potatoes as a model for the cell. We're going to use their ability to absorb the fat and cook as a model for the cell's ability to absorb nutrients and get rid of waste. We're going to look to see how size affects the cell's ability to do this efficiently. Enjoy the ride.
Alright, so first we're going to start with 2 potatoes, the knife to cut them, and the ruler to make sure we're cutting them to the correct size. First thing I want to do with the potatoes is I want to make them a rectangular prism. If you can see with this potato, it's slightly oddly shaped. So I'm looking at the small end and I'm going to start cutting there. It's a sweet potato. Oh, it's a purple potato, not a sweet potato. So now I have my nice small end, and I'm going to make another one. Now, if we weren't doing this, I would absolutely keep all of these because potatoes are just good and you can eat the skin. But because we want this to be a specific shape, we are going to keep a lot of excess on the sides. So I have approximately a rectangular prism. I did not cut this nearly as well as I would have hoped, but we'll make do. So first things first, let's measure. And we have just about 3 inches there by 1 inch. By 1¼ inches. So the first things we're going to do is we're going to make this a 1 inch. So now we have 1 by 1. We're going to make 3 1 by 1 cubes. There's one. There's another one. I'm going to find my groove. Come down. So these should be roughly 1 by 1 by 1 cubes. They're a little bit off, but they're close. So we have 3 cubes that are 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch. Now we're going to make our next potato. We're going to cut it 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. Again, going small side, going parallel. Parallel edge. Careful with the knife. And parallel edge. Now we want 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. This is close to 1.5 inches. So I'm gonna groove at 1/2. I'm gonna groove at 1/2. I'm going to come in the 1/2 inch, cut, I'm going to cut. Next I'm going to turn it over and do the same thing. I'm going to groove at 1/2, I'm going to groove at 1/2, I'm actually going to groove at another 1/2. I'm going to line them all up. And cut. Find the groove and cut. Find the groove and cut. That one's smaller, be careful of your fingers. So now we've got 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. It's time to get our last set of 1/2 inches. So about 2.5 inches, we're gonna get 4 good cuts for 5 good kind of cubes going this way. 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, and the last one's there. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So next we have our sets of cubes, and we are going to put some olive oil into our cooking containers. If you're more scientific and more precise than me, you would make sure it's a tablespoon of each in each pan. I did it kind of by sight. But we want it to cover up the bottom of the pan with a little bit extra. There's a little water in this, which means it's going to spit, but oh well. So we're going to put our smaller ones in one pan, our 1/2 inch cubes in one pan. We're going to put our 1 inch cubes in the other pan. We're going to separate these, and next we're going to move them over to the stove.
Yeah.
All right, so now we've got the potatoes on about medium-low heat, and we're going to stir, and we're going to keep track of the time. I'm going to go grab a fork. The liquid of the potato is already causing the oil to spit a little bit. So be careful. Ideally, it would not be sticking to the bottom of the pan given this oil, but that's what it's doing right now. I wonder if part of that's the starch. Notice that I have to spend more time with my smaller than with my larger. Sorry. Begin. Better. After about 3 minutes, we're going to check one from each of the containers to see how done they are. Actually, we're going to make that about 4 minutes. You can see some browning on the edges there. So we're going to give it about 30 more seconds before we test for doneness. One thing you might notice if you try and put your fork through one of the smaller potatoes is that you can get it all the way through. Whereas on our bigger potatoes, it doesn't go all the way through yet. All right, let's test them out. All right, you stop. All right, so to prove how soft the potatoes are, I'm gonna mash them, or at least try to mash them. So I'm gonna start with the smaller ones so we can see. I'm gonna take the fork, push down. See how easily the back of the fork went through the potato? Soft, it mashed. Let's try the bigger one. Gonna take the back of the fork and the potato flew across the room instead of wanting to mash. So, our smaller potatoes, even though we cooked about the same size of potatoes, our smaller potatoes cooked faster than our larger potato chunks. That's because the larger the surface area to volume ratio allowed it to absorb the heat and the oil faster, the nutrients for a cell in our model, and so complete its task faster. It was able to be more efficient. Thank you.